Good morning. It's potato time. And yes, I'm pulling my hair out of the way since that seems to bother some folks. It's true. But we are going to can potatoes. This is day 2. Now let's recap. Yesterday, all I did was peel them. I left them whole, set them in some water. Once I got the 10 pounds peeled, I rinsed that water off, got a new pot of water, and I diced them. Then I set them in the fridge for 4 hours. I drained that water off, rinsed the potatoes. Fresh water again, back in the fridge for 4 hours. Rinsed, and then I topped off the stainless steel pot that I showed y'all yesterday and topped it off as in cover your potatoes. And then I put them in the fridge until this morning. And that's where we're at. So, I'm trying to think. Got my coffee, got my station ready for y'all. We're going to go step by step. First thing, we got to get them potatoes out of that refrigerator. Get them rinsed. Yes, we're going to get them rinsed very well. And then, yeah, we fixing to rock and roll these potatoes because I got to go to the sugar shack, y'all. But look, my hair is out of my face. You know, do I need to put a head net on or, I wear them things out in the sugar shack. Y'all, I look like somebody going to Mars when I'm messing with y'all's seasonings. But if I'm in my kitchen, I kind of get free willy with it, Y'all, this is cold water. Ooh, that's cold. Okay, all I'm going to do is rinse these a couple of times and put my water over them because I like them to still be in water when we're jarring up. So, it ain't going to take me but a minute. I want to show y'all something. I got my potatoes sitting over here. Let's see if I can pick it up. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ball magazine books. Here's a ball book. No, here's the ball book. This is an Amish canning, another canning, and a canning. I think this is the complete book. Oh, I lied. I have 2 more. Point being is, these books I did not write. But these books is what I go by because it is food preservation approved. This is what I show on my channel. If it is not food preservation approved, I'm not going to do it. And I promise you, any recipe I want is in these books. But I can go to bed at night knowing that, hey, I'm not gambling with my family's life. I'm not gambling with the cost of food, whether I purchased it or I grew it. Cost of seeds, soil, amenities, you name it. I respect my food. I appreciate my food. And I love my friends and family. So, now let's get into canning, but I needed to make that clear. If some of you new ones find me through searching canning, and you want just some crazy off-the-wall recipes, if it ain't in these books, you won't find it on my channel. So, with that being said, we got to get to these potatoes. Lippy on a roll, ain't she? Yep, I can see y'all. See this right here? That's where our tattler's going to go on. Our jiggler. The first thing you do is you look through it and you make sure you can see clearly. Okay? The second thing, I use olive oil. Now, I do change my gasket every year, but I save the old one because you never know. Now, in this gasket, you can see that there is actually a lip here, okay? In this gasket. I like to take a little bit of olive oil on my fingers. I'm going to show y'all, this is a step-by-step of what Lippy does, okay? It's going to be hard doing it one-handed. I can see that now. But I'm going to set it down, and I'm just going to go through. Can you see? I'm going to go through this groove. Okay? That's all I'm going to do. My gasket is good. What that does is that helps ensure the seal. Now, I'll set this out of the way. And I'm going to grab this camera because I want to show y'all something. A lot of you may not know this. And I hope that I'm reaching some of you young ones, some of you new canners, okay? Because this is just basic, simple routine before you can anything, okay? So we've looked at where the jiggler is. It's clear. We've oiled lightly the inside of our gasket. Now let's look at our pot. Okay, you're looking at the inside of my Presto canner. Now, I'm only going to be doing 7 quarts this morning. I can double that. But in here is the water. You'll see a lot of times it says, add 3 quarts of water. Well, what they don't tell you is, most people are measuring water by the neck, the bottom neck of the quart jar. There is an actual indicator line in here, guys, that I bring my water to, okay? When they say 3 quarts, most people will put the water here or here. They literally mean 3 quarts, okay? So I always put 3 quarts to this neck. Then I come back with about 1/4 of a quart. I look at where my indicator line is in my pot. That's going to give you an accurate reading of the water. And the reason why those lines are in there, and 3 quarts sometimes doesn't work on all canners, is because of the design, okay? You have some that have a bubble to the bottom, and they're slender. You have the Prestos. A standard is actually a little bit wider. So when they say 3 quarts, they literally mean 3 quarts. But every stamped pressure canner that is food preservative approved will have an indicator line in there. Yes, some are hard to find. So if you don't see it, you can't locate it, my recommendation was to bring your water to this neck, okay? You're going to get in margin, okay? You'll be in margin. This is not in margin. This is not correct, okay? But I thought I would share that with you. Now, let me show y'all something else. I took the camera and put it back on the bar, but let me just show you, okay? Now, this is the steps that you're seeing me take. I would have done this with the camera off. Pulled the potatoes out, rinsed them, covered them back up. I've got my 3 quarts of water, and I got 2 tablespoons of white distilled vinegar, okay? Now, that vinegar is going to keep the film off of your jars. Now, I do have well water. My well water, like anybody else's, does have some lime. I don't draw from my well water. I draw from my Alexa Pure. It's just a preference, okay? But even with the Alexa Pure water, I could tend to have a little bit of cloud, which is nothing on the outside of the jars, but you just wash them with soap and water. But it does keep the jars clean, as in aesthetics. Doesn't damage anything if you don't add the vinegar or you forget. But you'll just have to scrub the jars. That's all it is. And I've had it happen to me with the Alexa Pure. That's because, just like my hands with the olive oil on this one jar, this is the only one I've been touching, I did this, okay? If I didn't wipe it well, it could make that little cloud where my hand was. So don't be alarmed, you know, if you see that cloud. Now, there is no heat on this stove. These jars are room temperature. My potatoes are just soaking in tap water. No heat. You always want to use equal amount of heat. So if I was hot packing potatoes, they would be hot. This would be hot. That would be warm. Not hot, just warm. So a good rule of thumb is follow the product first. As in, these are my potatoes. If you were doing green beans and you blanched them, they were warm, then you proceed forward with everything being warm. But whatever you do, don't get that water hot in that pressure canner. You can get it warm, but that's it. All right, so I got to stop jaw-jacking, get my hair out my way. Oh my, I might need to go put it in a ponytail. Whew. You know, some people, I tell you. Y'all, if we can't laugh, we're not living. Oh yeah, y'all can see good. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a teaspoon of pickling salt. Okay, this is just canning pickling salt. And I just cut the top off and shove it in my jar. And that's 1 teaspoon to a quart. If you were doing pints, it'd be a half a teaspoon. And I'm just doing 1 jar, okay? Just for the sake of the video. Now, let me get my rag. I will be using my hands. And like I said, I chunk mine. Well, let me find another one. About like that, okay? That allows me to use them in soups, stews, mashed potatoes. I stew fry them in a skillet. This to me is the perfect size. Now, I will be making French fries with some of the other potatoes. Okay, that one's kind of big. Let's see. And I have a bar mat here that I use to tap down, okay? I can probably get 1 more potato in here. Let's see. Oh, maybe a couple of more. I'll use my hands just to kind of give y'all a better visual. I don't like to overpack. I know about how many it takes. Let's see. I think this will be perfect if I can get her in there. There you go. All right, and I'm just gonna tap, right? All right, we're good. Now, I need 1 inch of headspace, correct? So, this is where I'm sitting, which is always, guys, right here. That first little neck, not here, but right here. But I pulled this out just so I could show you. Now, I'm using filtered water. About right there. Okay. Now, I use a chopstick. And it's going to be hard to debubble with this chopstick the way I pack these. Okay? You didn't have to pack them as hard as I did, but this is what I do. Okay? I'm going to take my hand just so the water doesn't splatter. And by lightly tapping it, I see no air pockets. Okay? So that's 1 down. I've got 6 more to go because I'm doing 7 quarts. Okay? So we'll set this to the side, and I'm going to get the rest of them done. Y'all look at this. This is a very small bowl. I may have a large baked potato size pieces left. So you can see it's not very large. Out of 10 pounds, that's what I had left. But I got all of my jars filled with 1 teaspoon of salt. If you're doing a pint and not a quart, it's a half a teaspoon. Remember, we did 1 full of water. Now we're going to fill these other ones. Usually takes a gallon of water for 7 quarts. A little bit more in this one, because I want to make sure my neck's right. I can actually add just a little bit more. I'm going to tap. Yeah, if you don't have a bar mat, get one. Ooh, that one had a lot of bubbles, and I can tell you why. I've got it packed. Okay, now, let's talk about siphoning. We're going to talk about siphoning before I'm pulling this one potato out. Y'all know I questioned it. I'm going to pull this one out. And see, this is what you do. If you'll be able to tell, because when you bounce that jar, okay, you want to make sure that water is over them, but you're not going past that 1 inch mark. And I found it's just easier to do it like this, because it'll tattletale it on its own self. It really, truly will give you a true indication that you've overpacked once you get that water in there. But let's talk about siphoning, okay? Let me wipe my hands off. Especially when you're dealing with potatoes. If they're green, in other words, if they're just fresh potatoes, as in these are russets that I'm using, they will not absorb as much liquid. If you're doing with a cured and aged potato, siphoning just means that as they're cooking in the pressure canner, they're shrinking in, they're absorbing that water. But when they do, the natural sugars and some of the residual starch that's in there will cause it to rise, okay, your water, and it'll siphon. Doesn't mean that it's a faulty seal, okay? 9 times out of 10, it seals. But then you're left with, oh my God, I started here with water, but I'd only have this much water left. That's because you had possibly a little bit of siphoning, and they were cured potatoes quite a bit, and that's what you really want for the flavor. And they absorbed a lot of that liquid. So if your water at the end result is not covering these potatoes, but your seal is sealed, the potatoes are still good. I get a lot of those questions, and I needed to address this. It may happen in this batch. If it does, I'll show you. But do not be alarmed. If you start here with water and your water goes to here, and you're like, oh no, what happened? If you got a good seal, you're fine. But that is actually very normal. And I got the heat cups, y'all. And I'm not turning this video off because this is very important, okay? Now, I've got me a paper towel here, clean. And I normally fold mine many times because I won't use the same side. I'll use this, I'll turn it around and use this, I'll open it up. Especially when you're dealing with salsa, tomatoes, things, stews. You don't want to have a piece on your paper towel and all you're doing is adding it to the next and the next and the next jar. So I always just fold mine up and start moving it around. So we're going to drop it down. I do keep my flats in warm water. It's not required, not hot water, just warm tap water. But it's required in my mind. Okay, it's a Lippy thing. Don't panic. It's just, you don't have to. It's just what Lippy does. Okay. You know, I'm kind of weird like that. Oh, can't forget about that hair. Lord knows them emails are going to come in. Okay. Now we're at cleaning the tops of our jars. All that is a wet piece of paper towel with some just distilled vinegar. Now, I did not mention, before you ever start, check your jars. Make sure there's no nicks on this. Inspect them. Make sure there's no cracks. All is well. They're sterile and clean. You're good to go, right? Well, when you get to this point, I take mine and I recheck again. Because a paper towel can catch a nick. More than your finger can, especially if you got tough hands like me. But see, as you can see, I'm taking this finger, my index finger, and I'm going around because I will be able to feel if I missed a nick. And sometimes it has happened, y'all. Oh, yeah, I've got y'all. Well, I'm doing good on my video, and I got y'all all up in the camera. Let me see. Oh, yeah, I can see y'all. Oh, there went the damn hair again. Y'all, I got to work on that. And I see this one here is short of water. Perfect. And these are 4 jars, flats. Y'all, I've been using them 3 months now. Loving them. Loving, loving, loving these things. And of course, they say you don't have to put them in water. But there again, I told y'all, it's a Lippy thing. Okay, here's our rings. Now, this is where some people mess up. They want to crank down. And I hope my arm, I'll use this hand. All I did was put my ring on. I'm going finger tight. You see, I didn't crank down on that. Let's do this one. See? That's all I'm doing. Okay, now I'm going to place my 7 quarts in the canner. There is no heat to this. These will pressure for 40 minutes. If you were using pints, it's 35 minutes. We're going to be pressuring for 40 minutes. Now, I'm going to turn the heat on my stove. I do know that the number 6 is the sweet spot for this. Okay, we're going to put our lid on. I put it on just like this, where they're separated. Crank down and bring it to me, okay? All we're doing right now is building up steam. That's in that little port, the jiggler port that I was looking through. This is going to take about 10 minutes to 15 to bring steam. But once we reach a full steady stream, that's when we start our first timing, and that's going to be for 10 minutes. But I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm just going to clean this up while I'm waiting for it to come up to a good steady steam. And then we're going to set our timer. Easy peasy. Potatoes need to... Oh, there goes the hair again. Sorry. The potatoes need... I can't do this with a straight face. Let potatoes be your first thing you do in pressure canning because it's the easiest. Got to keep that hair out of my food. It bothers people, you know. Okay, as you can see, we have what seems to be a steady stream, right? But it is not, because I can break it. Okay, now, can y'all see? Let me show y'all. There's the steam. I cannot break that steam. And this is where we're going to set our timer for 10 minutes. We need to let the pressure canner steam for 10 minutes. Okay, while we're waiting on the steam for 10 minutes, let's talk about weights. Now, some of you may have brand new, and I'm talking about a Presto, okay, canner. You got your Presto, you got your weight. Most of the canners come with 15-pound weights. Some you can separate, some you cannot. This particular pressure canner's about 6 years old. 6, 7 years old. It came with a 15-pound weight that could not be separated. So what did I do? I went on the Presto site for like 12 bucks. and I got a true weight. And what I mean by this is this here. Forget about the little ring that I'm holding. But this particular part is 5 pounds of pressure, okay? By adding one more ring, that gave me 10 pounds of pressure. That's what I pressure can on. There is an extra ring that came with it. But a lot of the pressure canner weight, or the gauges, that's what I call them. It's a large knob right here, and it's just got a thick metal piece. Those cannot be separated. So make sure that if you have just the standard wide handle one, make sure that those weights can be separated, because they do come with 15-pound weights. But I don't use that gauge on this pressure canner. That's just a secondary, okay? I'm watching it to get to 10 or 11. But this is what's going to tell me that I'm pressure canning correctly, by the jiggle of it. But I just thought about that. When I set this over to the side, I said, you know what? A lot of y'all may have that big handle one, and it's about this much of metal. Be careful with that. It may be a 15-pound pressure. If it is, just spend the $12 or $13 and get this one, guys. That way you know that you are pressuring on the correct amount that you need, and it's probably going to be 10 pounds. We got 5 minutes to go. But look, I've got my hair up. Doesn't look too bad. Kind of cute too, isn't it? Oh, and while I was waiting for this, I boiled that little bit of potatoes, and I mashed them. Y'all. Now, we got mashed potatoes that I can do potato cakes in. I can make a shepherd's pie. Pretty much anything I want to do. But that little bit of potato that you saw, where am I at? It made that much. Y'all. No waste that way. Timer's gone off. We're going to put our weight on, okay? I have moved my stove to about a 5.5. Okay, what we are doing now is we're going to build pressure. I need this gauge to be between 10 and 11. Now, my gauge has not been calibrated this year. So I'm not just going to go off what my gauge says. This just gives me a ballpark to start paying attention to my jiggler. I almost forgot, y'all. I wanted to show y'all this when I had the lid off. But you see this pop up? This is what you want to see when we are building. Once this tattler went on and we're building pressure, you want to see this up. This is an indicator that your lid was properly put on and locked in place. Inside this lid, there is actually a safety lip. So when your lid is locked in place, this should pop up. And what this does is that lets you know there's no steam escaping around this edge. Okay, we're getting close to reaching our 10 to 11 pounds of pressure. But as you can see, our jiggler is not moving. It will start dancing when we reach the proper pressure. So let's say we didn't have this gauge. There's your indicator right there. Okay, we're getting on the 10 pounds of pressure. Watch the jiggler. Forget we have a gauge. Just watch the jiggler. You see it? Now you will have to adjust the temperature on your stove so you keep a steady jiggle. Now I turned my stove down to a number 4 because that's the sweet spot that I pressure can on. And if you watch that jiggler, it's going to start getting into a rhythm. And where are we at? We're between 10 and 11 pounds of pressure. This is when we start our 40-minute timer. So this means a cup of coffee and just sit down and monitor the canner. The timer just turned off at 40 minutes. We're going to turn the stove off. The stove is off, and we're going to let it come down to 0 pressure. The tabler is stopped, and your button here is completely down before we touch this pot. And there you have it. Now, as you can see, I have airflow. You don't want to crowd your jars. And I'm looking closely, and I only have 1 siphoning. That was probably the jar that I was giving bad luck to. No, I'm just joking. This is the one that I was pulling the potatoes out from. But if you look, let me go slow. There's no siphoning. So there you have it. Now I do cover mine with a cloth, and I let it sit for 24 hours. I do this just in case there is a failure with a jar. This will prevent the glass from going everywhere, but I don't want to alarm you. I've never had a jar bust on me, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen. Now it's time to get supper done, and I'm going to let my canner go hot water, completely cool. I'll dump it, wash it out, put it back in the box, and it's good till the next time. So I hope that many of you enjoyed my canning potato recipe. And I call it a recipe because it's the steps that I choose to take. You get a better result in your potatoes, and you don't have that cloudy water look that doesn't seem very pleasant to your palate. May taste still great to some, not to me. But this soaking method will not fail you. So, as always, stay safe, stay well, and God bless. And yes, Lippy's gonna sport this new hairstyle when it comes to cooking. For those hair police that's out there. I love y'all. Bye.